it's time for us to discuss Wakanda Forever. I'm just gonna say this, man. I cried. Not boo-hoo cried. I'm saving that for the movie. But I teared up immediately when that trailer came on, man. Like Nakia on the beach, I was already done. I was done. You ain't even got to tell me that they had the Bob Marley, everything's gonna be. I ain't even realized that until halfway through the trailer, bro. I was just like, it's here. It's this. I gotta say, I don't remember the last time I looked forward to a movie. And I'm gonna say this is absolutely no cap. No cap. I did not even look forward to Star Wars this much. Like straight up. Not one of the sequel trilogy movies did I have this much anticipation for. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, again, of course, it's Black Panther. But I am so curious to see what this movie is and to see what this movie does and what this movie is able to become. Maybe it just is, it maybe turns out to just be a good movie. That's cool. It doesn't have to do anything beyond entertain us. Like, that's the one thing that, even I have to remind myself is at the end of the day, it's just entertainment. But it's something to be said about a piece of entertainment or a piece of content that reaches people and touches people on a level that transcends entertainment. And like, without putting too fine of a point on it, man, I think we are on the precipice of that with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Like, it was an extremely unfortunate set of circumstances that brought us to this point. But now that we are here, I think we are at a moment that doesn't really come by very often. It's not often that you have something that people can universally get behind or that people universally anticipate and not really, get overhyped about. Like, there's a lot of times where, we talk about stuff and we like, oh, this is going to be the best movie since blah, blah, blah. Or this is going to be, super dope. Take my money, the whole nine. But this is something I think because of what's attached to this movie, the circumstances attached to this movie, I think this movie has a chance to be like monumental in a way that I don't even fathom yet. And again, it's not because I think the movie's going to be this Oscar-worthy performance or anything like that. Although, spoiler alert, Angela Bassett gonna kill it in this movie if y'all ain't know.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm just here to tell you, just off the little bit we got from that teaser from this woman, she is bringing the pain of 1,000 black mothers in this movie. If you don't know what black mother suffering looks like, you about to find out. Because she about to show you, and you're gonna learn that day. And I mean that in the most respectful and graceful way that very few actresses can pull off. And it's gonna be crazy, man. But I just feel something with this movie, man. With this teaser, I feel something, and I don't know what yet. But how did it hit you, man? When you saw the trailer, did you get any kind of special kind of feels or anything like that, or was it like, oh, this is dope, I'm with it?
Oh no, I mean, I definitely got all the feels. You get to see the true raw emotion of each of these actors, at least the original cast. Like, you can tell that it's definitely weighing on them to have to create this movie without Chadwick.
Yeah,
you can't help but see that in all of the emotion in Angela Bassett, in M'Baku Winston Duke. Like, you see it, period. So like when I see the trailer, and the only time that you get to see T'Challa is he's up on the wall. If you don't get the feels from seeing the ceremony, it looks like they're putting in there. There's even a quick clip when you get to see you see Shuri. She's like breaking down crying, and it just makes you wonder: is it how do they explain not having T'Challa? How do they explain what happens to him? To that kind of degree, to where these actors are able to fully flesh their characters out, but show their still true raw emotion that they have as the human being. So, I didn't shed a tear or anything like that, and it's probably because I was still kinda hyped up. I was covering the SDCC,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
I didn't get to kind of come out of myself to see the trailer in that kinda light, but at the same time, you get to see them up on stage embracing each other
Mhm.
and releasing that emotion. It's like if none of that emotion came out in this movie, then there's something wrong. And people who may not want to see this movie because there's no T'Challa, because Chadwick Boseman isn't in it, I
Mhm.
feel like you'll be doing these just the actors, Ryan Coogler, the crew, like everybody, a huge disservice
Facts.
because I know that they had to put a lot of emotion, even in scenes that probably didn't call for it.
Mhm.
They probably acted their hearts out. So just because of that, I'll pay $8 to
Right.
go see this movie more than once too. I might even
Facts.
go to a matinee and come back later that night and watch it again because I'm almost
Oh,
convinced
yeah.
that this movie is going to be that epic. I feel if you were disappointed by Doctor Strange, if you were disappointed by Thor or any of the Disney Plus shows, I don't see anywhere where Black Panther won't make up for that. I don't think we'll need T'Challa. We'll
Yeah.
miss it, yes, but I feel that they may be able to carry it
Yeah.
as far as they need to.
No, I agree with you on that. And I think it's definitely not a coincidence that they decided to end cap phase four with this movie. Um, but before we even get into the trailer, I just want to talk about the whole presentation that they put on itself. They brought out the dancers, they had like the
Yeah,
folk dancing going on, which that already puts you in a certain type of feel vibe anyway. Like, just seeing that and seeing black excellence on display in that way, and this is something that I'm starting to enjoy a lot more as I get older, is watching other people take in my culture. And I mean that from a positive perspective, because naturally there are certain things about anybody's culture that, someone from the outside might not necessarily understand or they might not rock with. But I'm talking about more in a positive way. And like really seeing people embrace black culture and really trying to get insight into what they take from that. Because I feel like that's something that we as people should do more of if we really want to try to understand each other and deal with some of the problems that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it was cool for me to just watch the audience's reaction as all of that was going on, and to kind of see people, kind of confused, but still, here for it and embracing it and whatnot. And really people understanding and giving the moment its proper amount of respect. Because again, yes, it's just a movie. We get all of that. But at the same time, an actor gave his life kind of doing this thing that he loved and kind of leaving it, literally leaving it all on screen. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't care who you are, or what background you are, or what your religion is, if you practice religion or whatnot. You have to, there's something that like triggers you in a way as a human being when you see people that are celebrating the life of somebody whose light was extinguished too soon. And that's what this movie I think is going to be a focus on. Is I think that this movie, what they decided to do with this, is kind of table the whole idea of T'Challa for now, or should I say the passing of the mantle, to make this movie more so about the idea of the transition itself. And how do we get past losing our king? How do we deal with that as a collective? Like we can talk about the specifics when we get to that point, but as a country, as a people, how do we deal with that loss in the midst of like having people coming for our necks, with the whole situation with Namor and the Atlanteans and all of that, like that whole thing. Like that's gonna be what's crazy, and I think that's where the power is gonna be in this movie, because it's going to be a story of resiliency. I think it's going to be something where you really see kind of one of what I think is the most glowing aspects of my culture, is how we deal with grief and how we are able to take all of that loss, all of that pain, and turn it into something beautiful. And I think that's what you're going to see for this entire movie. And I will say this, the plot or the movie itself may suffer just slightly from it, in terms of if you're wanting to see Black Panther as something that's really going to go deep into the lore of the MCU and really further that story, you might not get that from this movie, because I don't think that's what this movie's purpose is going to be. I mean, I still think there's going to be threads and they've still got to tell a story. But I think one of the things that you'll see immediately with this movie is that the utmost importance was put on honoring Chadwick Boseman. And I'm
Facts.
totally here for that. I'm totally, you see it even like you said, to your point, homie, even in the trailer and the little teaser we got, just the little scenes where like they had his mural on the wall, or where you see the Dora Milaje standing up and they had the Wakandan writing on the wall that said "Our King T'Challa," I think, like "Rest in Power," or whatever that says specifically. Like those are going to be the elements, watching, like you said, Shuri and her kind of dealing with this. And not so much from the, okay, well, what do I do now as a Black Panther, or if that's the way that they go. I don't even think it's gonna be that. Think about this, and then I want to see what you think about. I want to hear your thoughts. But we watched Tony Stark die, right? We watched the Infinity Saga. That ended with the fictional death of Tony Stark. People were tore up from Tony Stark dying at the end of that movie. Rightfully so, because from a storytelling standpoint, it was impactful. When you watch that man come full circle from being all about himself, completely self-centered, to the old, like, providing the ultimate sacrifice, if you will, that was, that spoke volumes. And the way that they decided to give him a send-off, that reverberated even beyond the movie. Because again, if you think about Far From Home and the way that, Spider-Man and Peter Parker were dealing with Iron Man's loss in that, and the world, in fact, were dealing with Iron Man's loss post, the snap and all of that stuff. And the emotional weight that was within that, and the way that it was done, and the taste that was given to that. And that was a fictional death.
Right.
We talking about somebody who actually died, like the actor himself, who was gonna probably have this mantle for the next at least 10 years.
Yeah.
Prematurely passed on. And so I'm just like, I'm thinking about that, and it's like, I hate to be that person that like tries to make it bigger than it really is, but it feels different. Like the vibe was completely different. Like we was popping and getting live for everything that they was dropping at Hall H. It was announcement after announcement, but like the Black Panther thing hit different.
Yeah.
And the trailer was just like, it was the teaser was well done. It didn't give you a lot. It gave you enough to kind of understand what you're gonna get from the movie. I thought it was dope. The opening shot, again, going back to Nakia standing there on the beach, kind of with that "what now" look. Like, and really you got to see that from everyone, because you got to see even his mom, and you got to see Shuri, and like people just kind of in this reflective look, like, man, like this is real.
Right.
And that's the thing that I think is so dope. But like, let's kind of bring it back to the teaser itself and the footage they gave us. How did you feel about the footage? Did you feel like the movie seems like it's got a good vibe visually from the little bit that we got? Like, in terms of just the bossing up of Wakanda itself, or the people of Wakanda, and kind of what we saw from that. How did the aesthetics hit you?
Oh, it so far, I mean, honestly, it looked perfect. I mean,
That's what's
the
up.
way that everything looks, from how they're handling Namor to how they show even his side of the emotion that he's gonna go through from being a kid to growing up and having to try to seek vengeance. Is that something that the Wakandans actually had a play into? Brings a lot of questions with the way that they presented it in the trailer.
Yeah.
To where that's gonna go. But honestly, I mean, the things that they show, from the dance sequence to the birth of, which I actually believe is Namor,
Yeah, I
not
do too.
T'Challa or his son. To they have like some kind of iron aquatic suits. Looks like they're going to be dropping down into the water. Maybe it could be them searching for Atlantis, or they found it. They have a scene with Shuri where there's like fire going across and going up the walls. Like what's going down with that? We're putting water on fire now. They're going into looks like M'Baku's area with or they're flying from M'Baku's area. There's just so much going on. The way the Atlanteans look, like why are they blue and look different than Namor? There's just so many different questions that when you actually look and you break down the trailer itself, seeing the Atlanteans swimming in on the whales. They're coming in on the whales to do their attack. I feel like some of it's misleading, I feel like
Mhm.
there is gonna be a confrontation between the Wakandans and the Atlanteans,
Mhm.
but not for the reason that we think. I
Oh,
feel like
yeah.
there's a misdirect there that brings them to fighting each other, but in the end, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And, then the kingdoms maybe come together and unite against the actual villain. I feel like there's just a misdirect in there, but
Oh, yeah.
everything that's going down in the trailer definitely makes you wanna know, how they honor T'Challa, how they move on from that, what's the conflict, how does that conflict resolve itself?
Yeah.
There's nothing in this trailer that I don't wanna go and find out from actually watching this movie.
Right.
And I'm gonna have to bring some tissues with me for some tears, cause I'm pretty sure I might get a little worked up and try to be tough and hold them in, but they
Mhm.
might just roll on out, and that's gonna be alright, man. I wanna see
Yeah, man.
what they do to honor T'Challa, and,
Yes.
real quick, I was shout out to Chillmonger, I was on his show earlier,
Yeah,
and
shout out to Chillmonger, man.
we had a little conversation about the trailer itself, and
Mhm.
he feels, and much respect, he feels like they were like exploiting it. And
Mm.
to our like you and I, we always say this. We feel like these Disney movies are in a space where it's like it's damn if you do, it's damn if you don't. Like if
Facts.
they didn't put it in there that they honored T'Challa, they everybody would be pretty much in an uproar about it because they didn't choose
Facts.
to recast. Now they're not even going to honor or mention my man's. Like that
Mhm.
would have been a problem. Now that they're actually deciding to put that in the movie and it's coming off as an honorable thing, now they're exploiting it because the man's no longer here, and they're trying to like end his legacy to start something new. I didn't really necessarily feel that. As per the rest of the conversation, as far as recasting and all that types of stuff,
Mhm.
I felt like perhaps they should, but I feel that there's a time and a place for that, and
Right,
we're not
right.
there yet until we get this. Until we
Yes.
see this movie, till we see how they actually honor T'Challa, till we see what they're planning on doing with the Black
Mhm.
Panther character or the costume, however you want to look at that. Um, we can't move on just yet. We need
Right.
that closure for the
For sure.
MCU, for the fans. That's all very important that we get
Yes.
that before we decide to try to throw another actor in that suit. And it only makes sense that you put a person like it's heavily speculated that it's Shuri in the costume.
Mhm.
Um, but that could always be a member of the Dora Milaje, who knows? But I mean, by the way the comics go, it's supposed to be Shuri taking on that mantle for whatever reason. And that's about like the only person that I feel would make the best sense to put in that costume at this point.
Got you.
Then you handle that later. Then you decide multiverse. Then you decide maybe they find a way in Black Panther 3 or the TV show to big up another person that they decide to
Mhm.
make the Black Panther. Then you can do those types of things. But we
Got you.
definitely need to get this emotion out. We need to flesh out these the hurt in these characters, the
Mhm.
birth of Namor, and then we can enjoy what we're looking forward to from there. And I still think it's gonna be an enjoyable movie. I don't feel like the whole movie is gonna be a
Oh,
drag,
yeah. No, I
um,
don't think so.
about
Well,
that, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like there's gonna be a lot of drama, a lot of emotion,
oh, yeah,
real
that's a part
raw
of it.
emotion, and, we need that, man.
Yeah, and that's the part of, the whole grieving process. It's not to say that there won't be any or that there shouldn't be any crying or anything like that. That's BS. I think it's going to be more of a celebration than we think, though, just simply based off of, the African culture and the way that
Yeah,
they celebrate, death as kind of passing on into the next phase.
right,
I think they'll lean into a lot of that in the movie, but I do think that, there is that humanistic side of it to where it's like, yeah, we understand how we supposed to feel, but how I actually feel is something completely different.
right,
And so it'll be interesting, I think, to see how they deal with those emotions. To the point of the whole exploitation thing, I can see where people can feel that, and maybe there is a little bit of that, to a degree. But the question I ask to that is like, what the hell do you expect? Like in
right,
this, and it's like you said, it's almost a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because as the movie studio or the production studio that's putting on this movie, like you have a responsibility to on some level honor this person who was so integral in making your property at the level of prestige that it was for the time, that brief time, because we're only talking about what, a 5 year span or so.
Yeah.
But still, like, for what that movie was and what it meant to so many people, like, you can't just brush over that with the sequel. You want to tell me that quote unquote black Twitter or whatever you want to say wouldn't be coming for Kevin Feige neck if they
Oh,
didn't mention anything about, if they just put an in loving memory of our
right.
man,
Man,
stop it, bro.
heavy,
Like,
heavy
it,
Booker T on that one.
right. I'm like, come on, man. And I get like the whole thing about people, saying, well, I don't want them exploiting our culture and this and this and that. But it's like, again, to your point, what more can you add? Like, what do you want then? Like, what would be appropriate at that to you then? Like, how I would ask
Right,
anybody who
right,
has that opinion, then how should they handle it?
right,
Like, for that would be satisfactory for you, because I feel like in any event there's going to be some type of that, like in this case you can see it as exploitation, because again, that's no different than when a celebrity actually passes, in reality, and we honor that. It's just like, for example, when a musician passes and like satellite radio gives them their own station for like a week or a month or however long they do it, is that exploitation? Are we
right,
saying, oh well, they just gave them a radio station so they could capitalize on the listeners? Well, yeah, there's a part of that, of course, but I mean, at the same time, for the people who have a connection to this artist, you don't think they appreciate the fact that that's there for them to help work them through that?
right,
It's gonna be the same thing with this movie. I mean, yes, there'll be a certain level of exploitation, depending on what lens you choose to view it through. But at the same time, there are going to be people who are going to say, I needed to see that on screen in order for me to be able to properly like digest and handle these emotions that I'm dealing with as
facts,
a result of this situation. And
facts,
yes, I will agree that there are some out there that might say, well, it's not that serious to you.
right,
You know what I'm saying? It's not that deep for you. You don't know how many little black girls went to go see Black Panther and fell in love with the idea of being a part of something that embraces their culture as opposed to shunning it.
right,
Like, you know how many young black boys went to that movie and came out with the hope that they could be a T'Challa one day? Like, you can't just poo-poo on that because, and I'm gonna just say it like it is. You can't poo-poo on that because we've had Clark Kent for decades, and so there's been a white hero for children to look up to. You can't poo-poo the fact that it's that deep when we get somebody that looks like us that we can actually like hold up to that pedestal of a Batman or a Superman. It's
right,
one thing to have, like, I'm not saying there's never been a black superhero before Chadwick Boseman played T'Challa. We all know that's false, that there have been several. But to be one that you could put on the level of a Spider-Man, a Superman, a Batman, and say, you know what? We have our A-list or our A-tier character now. Like, we have a superhero to represent us now.
right,
Like that, you cannot downplay what that means to somebody. And so I think, while yes, there is a level of exploitation, again, depending on how you look at it, I think just for every person that feels like it's an exploitation move, you got 10 people that are like, I'm glad they did this because I needed to see this on screen.
right.
So, it's always gonna be, go both ways, I think. And as long as we keep it respectful with it, it's all to the bueno, man. It's just old conversation.
Right. Now I'll have to go rewatch it. But when they actually honored Chadwick Boseman,
Mm-hmm.
they actually did that. Now, I will say from what I remember, I have to go watch it again,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like that had a little bit of exploitation in it. And there was a segment in there that made me feel that way. Like at first
Okay.
I was like, this is cool. I'm glad that they're honoring him, blah blah blah. But there was a part in there that I caught that I was just like, that's exploitation. So I'll have to go back
Gotcha.
and watch that. And I'm hoping that when we watch this movie and we watch it play out, not just in a
Mm-hmm.
little clip trailer, that it doesn't give that vibe off.
Right.
But there should be a difference between the Chadwick Boseman being buried and T'Challa. You know
No,
what I'm
I
saying?
agree
Like those
100%
types
with
of
that.
things had better not be in it. Like I said, I'm gonna go back and rewatch it, and then
For
I'll
sure.
touch base on that again in a later date, another video or something. But I don't
Now,
feel like with it being handled by Ryan Coogler
yeah.
that there's any kind of room for him to allow or want to put any exploitation in there. I just
I got you.
there's a fine line on that.
Yeah, definitely that. One of the things though, and I will say this, and this is kind of to Chillmonger's point. Shout out to the homie again, but I'll meet him halfway because there is one thing that I'm worried about with this movie, and it's one small thing that I saw in the teaser. And again, it's a teaser. You don't really get a real idea of what the movie's gonna look like or how the plot's gonna go or anything like that. But there was a lot of focus on the women of Wakanda in this movie, in this
Yes.
teaser.
Yes.
And one of the things that I'm worried about, while I don't think it's exploitative move, it definitely could be kind of a bait and switch because I really hope they don't take this as an opportunity to turn this into a message movie
Okay.
in terms of this being kind of like a referendum on the need for strong black women in our community or something like that. Like, again, I'm not saying that ain't true. I agree with that 1000%. But what I'm saying is, let's not take this movie as an opportunity to get a message across like that, because that would be in poor taste, in my opinion. If you
Right.
take a movie where you're trying to honor, this person who passed in real life, and then say, okay, now let's co-opt that and turn it into a movie. I mean, a message where we can kind of like get our agenda out there or get this particular agenda or whatever the case may be. Let's not do that, man.
Right.
Let's not dishonor that man's legacy by trying to turn this into some kind of a message on the state of like black people and the the male female dynamic within our culture. Let's not do that. Let's really not do that. Let's not, play on the whole fatherless home trope and like I don't want to see Nakia having to struggle with raising a black son by herself. Like
Right.
we don't need all that. Like let's keep that somewhere else. If we want to explore that down the line, then I'm cool with that. But can we please just like keep the focus of this on how we're going to move forward post Chadwick Boseman, aka T'Challa, in the MCU? Like you're definitely going to touch on some social points, and I have no problem with that. But I'm going to be highly disappointed if when I walk out of that movie, I feel like I just saw an infomercial on Black Power, feminine Black Power to be specific. Even if it's male Black Power, I don't want to see that. What I would really love to see from this, and I'm thinking about this right now, the biggest thing that they could highlight, and this is what I'm really hoping it highlights, is our people's ability to turn tragedy into triumph. That's what I want to see. I want to see all hell break loose. I want to see them dealing with the loss of T'Challa, and right in the midst of that, having to deal with Namor and his people coming to rip up the scene, and them being kind of at rock bottom, going, is there anybody who gives a damn? And then ultimately, the country of Wakanda, the nation of Wakanda, not the women of Wakanda, not the men of Wakanda, but the nation of Wakanda says, you know what? We are T'Challa. We are the Black Panther. We are what Chadwick Boseman or T'Challa embody. We have to now be that. We have to, as a collective, move forward and preserve our country, our way of life. We can't depend on one savior to come do this for us.
Right.
I want that. Give me that message, and I'm here for it all day long. Celebrate our ability to do that, and we golden.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But if it starts to turn into like where it's getting preachy and all of this kind of stuff, that will take me out of it. So I'll meet Chillmonger halfway and say that is one thing that had me like, should we be worried? Like, should we? But I
Right.
don't think so, because I feel like, to your point, homie, Ryan Coogler's still on the job. My man was there. He knows what his vision is. He knows what he wants. I'm sure it was hard as hell for them to figure out, how they were going to make this thing work. But they actually came out with a plan, and I'm in full support of it until I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
We'll have to see how it plays out, but
Right.
I have utmost confidence that it's going to work out, man.
Right. Yeah, I'm choosing to be optimistic and stay that way.
Right.
And the biggest reason is because what I liked about the first one is there weren't any American tropes.
Mm-hmm.
So worrying about her having to have that struggle to raise a black child, blah 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 blah, that's American. That's not African culture. You know what I'm saying? So as long as they keep leaning and keeping those types of things as the embodiment of what Black Panther, T'Challa, and that culture is,
Mhm.
I think we should be fine. I'm there with you, though. If I see anything like that that's starting to cross over, I'll have a problem with that because the way that we as Americans view things is not the way that them as Africans in actual Africa and their culture will handle things. That's why they handle death differently. That's why they feel like it's going into a new phase.
Right.
We don't, as Americans, we don't necessarily look at death as going into a new phase. A lot of us have our own beliefs. Some of
Mhm.
us feels like there's nothing. Some
Right.
of us feel like you're going with God, you go with our lives, whatever. But I want to and hope that they carry that on with the same kind of tropes that they brought in the first movie.
Right.
So I'm staying optimistic on that. And so far from what I'm seeing, I don't think I have to be worried about that.
That's what's up. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I don't think it's gonna be too bad. Like I said, if there was one thing, if I was really stretching to try to see, a potential negative vibe with the movie, like I said, that's the one thing that I could find. But I don't think that's gonna be the case, man. I think that, like I said, there's gonna be the utmost importance put on honoring this man and what he was able to do for this, for the MCU, for this role, for Black culture, and from the movie perspective, I think it's gonna be a dope movie even beyond that. I think the story that we do get, I think will still play into the larger MCU role. I just don't think that they'll really put a definitive answer on the mantle of the Black Panther, like going forward.
Right.
Um, I think the trailer is designed to lead everybody to believe that it's gonna be Shuri, and ultimately that may be who it is, but I think that that's a misdirect. In my opinion, I think that the door is still wide open on who could take that mantle. And when one person that I'm still rooting for is Killmonger. Like I'm still gonna root for that. I don't care. Like that's my selfish wish is to see Eric Killmonger return. Now, the one thing that I'll say is a constellation. If we can't get Eric Killmonger or a variant of Killmonger coming through or whatever the case may be, then my consolation would be for Shuri to have some kind of a to bring or make contact with a multiversal version of Killmonger who helps her to embrace this new responsibility. That kind of like he's the Black Panther in his universe, and
Right.
so he's talking to her about what it's going to take or what it will mean. Maybe he took up the mantle in his universe after T'Challa died in that universe, and so he's telling her what it's going to take for her to be the Black Panther. I would take that as consolation, but I think in order to really for my own $2, not eight, just two, just two. But for my $2, I think if you have to have in order to properly, I think, mourn, if you will, the child's passing. We got to see everybody back, man. Everybody impacted. I got to now. You ain't got to bring every single actor, every single key grip. I ain't talking about like that, but like it would be.
Down to the key grip.
You know what I'm saying? You ain't gotta go that far, bro. We don't need that. We don't need the man, the production assistant that was bringing them coffee every day. I don't need all that. But what I would like to see is like a Killmonger variant to where we're able to see kind of that character processing the same thing. Like now, granted, he won't have as much of a connection to this iteration of T'Challa, but he could have gone through a similar situation in his universe that allows him to give or to share some perspective on it. I think that would be deep AF if they were able to get Michael B. Jordan to come back and do that as a cameo.
Yeah.
Like that would be the cherry on the Sunday, man.
Yeah, man.
I'd be
Man,
here
that
for it.
was my pick. If they were to recast, if they were to
Hmm.
do anything like that, yes. Try to get in,
Yeah,
baby.
with that
Do it.
1000%.
SJ, whatever.
But yeah, man, it's all good. I am stoked for this movie though, bro. Like of all of the announcements we got, obviously this was the one for me. And I mean, we've all went through the trailer breakdowns. I don't think we need to go scene by scene and talk about the trailer. I think there's plenty of that online. But just the fact that we finally got a teaser, we finally got a look, man. I like Namor. I like the look of Namor. I like the look of the movie. It looks every bit as colorful and vibrant as the first, if not a little bit more. I really do hope we get to see more of Wakanda than that little strip center, though. I hope
Yeah.
we can graduate past the strip center, though. Like, that's
Yeah.
all. That's the only other thing I'm asked for, Mr. Coogler. And when we cool in the gang, bro, just don't give me the little strip center on.
Right.
That's it.
No. And maybe give a storm. Nah,
Oh my God! See now,
I doubt that would happen.
Man,
save
now you're
that
getting
for a
now you
speculatory
talking that
video.
X-Man.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to save that for something else.
Was there anything else that you're looking forward to with the movie? Anything else that like you'd like to see, or any questions you got going into the movie at all so far?
Nope. I just I'm gonna already be hyped because it's coming out in November.
Facts.
Both of us got our birthdays, man. So we celebrate that whole month.
Indeed, son.
So I'm
November
here
to
for
remember.
It. Yes, I'm just here for it. I'm ready to see what it is that they do with these characters, and I'm interested what happens going forward. I mean, so just give it to me, man. I ain't worried about it. I ain't worried about it.
That's what's up.
I'm ready to see the movie. Give me the movie.
Yeah, man. That's what's up. Exactly.
Give
us the movie.
Give us movie.
Yes. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Forever, forever, ever.